Welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we cut through the bullshit
Greggy,
so we can get naked.
you can't say that.
Why not? How would you say it then?
Well, maybe more like, welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we undress emotionally so we can undress physically.
That's exactly what I said. Not sure what the problem is. Number 9.
Well, hello there.
We're
Feeling fine.
inching towards double digits, babe.
Woo, then I won't be able to come up with a rhyme anymore.
I know. Maybe that's good or bad. I'm not so sure.
Probably
We'll
good.
figure it out. But we're excited to be here with you today. We like to talk about something that often comes up with our clients and seeing if we can address some of this. And what it is disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in this relationship so closely with someone, if there's not disappointment going on, you're probably not really engaged in the relationship. It's much like what my old college professor taught me, is that if you're not fighting a little bit, then one of you probably isn't showing up.
Yep.
And I think it's the same here. If you're not a little disappointed, then one of you is probably not showing up.
So I think that we have a culture or a romantic idea in our Western world that the person that we marry is going to be our all and our everything, and to make us feel needed and loved, and going to be able to fulfill all of our wants and desires. And I think that is a lot of pressure and expectation to put on one person.
Yes, it is. So I'll start with the higher desire side.
Okay.
And talk about little disappointments.
Okay.
And we can address it. When we get down to it, we talked about this in our last podcast. Most commonly, higher desire individuals, myself and others that I've talked about, the underlying thing that they want the very most is to be chosen.
Yes.
And so when we think about being chosen, we often think about if you would, that phrase.
And you probably have 50 ideas that simultaneously pop into your head.
500 ideas.
500. Oh, sorry.
Yes, we think about this all day long.
500. So. All of the ways that your spouse could greet you, kiss you, love you, surprise you, tease you, play with you. He's making funny faces.
Play with you sounds good.
That are immediately available. And I coach so many spouses who are like, I just imagine when I walk into the door that, you know, the higher desire spouse is imagining they'd walk into the door and the lower desire would just rush to them and or have this surprise for them or ravish them. And the lower desire spouse is working on a task and says, hey, how's it going?
So we've talked a lot about like, how do we get rid of that big gap, right? We understand it. But in the end, we can't always get rid of the big gap.
No, let's first talk about lower desire before we talk about getting rid of it.
No. I disagree.
I love
Be
this.
disappointed. Okay, go ahead and talk about it.
I'm devastated. No, just kidding. I think higher desire is constantly thinking spontaneously of all the ways their spouse could choose them. And lower desire is feeling the pressure of those expectations and as if their existence is a disappointment. And so from my experience and perspective, they're trying to mitigate that disappointment or manage that disappointment or lower expectations or completely distancing to try not to be a disappointment.
Run away,
withdraw, all sorts of things.
I'm sure that higher desire person won't chase you at all.
Oh, they chase and chase and lower desire rejects and rejects until both of them are hurting, really desiring each other, but not knowing how to reach. And lower desire really wants to be able to move closer without the expectation so that there's actually freedom there and the ability to choose not only themselves, but the other. And higher desire is wanting to feel chosen, not like they have to always ask and request.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct. And like we said, we've talked a lot about how do we understand this? How do we minimize that, right? How do we get on the same page with each other? How do we express this to one another? A lot of all the different tools we put in the toolbox to do this. But in the end, no matter what tools you have and no matter what happens, as a human being, there will always be a gap.
Yes, there will be a gap. And in a marriage, you must be able to face disappointment because you will never be everything for your spouse and they will never be everything for you. So there is inherently disappointment woven in that period.
Yeah, one of our favorite people in all the world talks about a good marriage is around what you do with that disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
When, especially a high desire, I know it's low desire, but when you're told no, how do you react and what do you do with it? And that really is the definition of having a good marriage or a good partnership.
Yeah, being able to really work through disappointment and first of all, expect it. You're going to be disappointing and you're going to be disappointed, and having a more, what's a way to say it? Having a more balanced view of really what a marriage relationship is. I think the lower desire often really wants to be taken care of, and they want either emotionally be taken care of, financially be taken care of, or some type of caretaking that they're pulling for. And to recognize, that is like your work, not your spouse's. I think higher desire wants their insecurities or anxieties, like in that being chosen, they want to know that they're worthy of being chosen, and also knowing that that's their work or your work to do.
Yeah. So great. We've identified it's going to be there. Mm-hmm. It doesn't help anyone. Mm-hmm. I guess it does help to identify it, but let's talk a little about how.
Well, knowing that if you are feeling disappointed or like a disappointment,
that's normal.
That's normal. Yeah. So I think
that does help.
That does help. Like, marriage is asking you to face these things. Yep. And that doesn't mean your marriage is broken. Your marriage is actually working. That's what a marriage does.
That's why we find you so much. Right?
Yes. Yes.
So let's give some skills that we've learned.
Skills.
That's a Z. Skills. Let's talk about some skills that we've learned to coping with this. I'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
I think the biggest one for me was what we talked about in an earlier podcast is I'm a validation whore, or was a recovering validation whore. And so the biggest thing for me to help me overcome and be able to handle disappointment was not seeking validation. And the reason why this was so important for me was because the disappointment used to mean something about me. Mm-hmm. Personally, there was something wrong with me. I'm broken. I'm not desirable.
Personal attack.
I'm being attacked personally. She doesn't want to be with me. All the things that when I was not validated that came to my mind would cause me not to be able to handle the disappointment. And so I do one of two things. I would either, at first I would keep pushing, trying to get the right answer and not be disappointed and pretend it wasn't there. And that didn't work out very well.
No, pretending doesn't work.
So that's the enmeshment side of the relationship. That's how I dealt with it. And then when I realized that wasn't a good idea and I stopped doing that, then the other side, I went to the other side of the coin, which was being toxic independent. And I said, I'm just not even going to be connected with you, because if I avoid being connected with you, then I avoid the disappointment too. Mm-hmm. And so really recognizing, one, those two are both bad. There's still no connection involved in there, was really important to me. And the second one was, it didn't mean anything about me. Like, I am okay with who I am. And if you say no, or if you don't initiate sex the exact way I think you should, or at all, that it didn't mean that I was not sexy or that I was not desirable. It was part of being in a relationship with someone that's different than me. And that's okay. And so that was my number one.
But was it really okay if it happened for a really, really long time? Like at some point?
At some point it's going to be really hard. And I have, some of the most heartbreaking sessions I've had with clients was at a point where one of the spouses was like, I've been doing this for so long and I have not seen anything change or any hint that it will. And you have to have that hard conversation with, okay, well, that is an answer unto itself, right? So when someone doesn't choose to step into or move with you in the dance move when you change and you do the work yourself, and you've done the work yourself and you're honestly about it, then that is an answer. They're saying, I don't want to or will not move in that direction. And at least you know where you're at that point, and you can make a decision from that place, but it's really, really tough. And there's been some very, very tough conversations I've had when it's been over a very long period of time. And I think the two possibilities you have is, one, okay, this is how it's going to be and I'm okay with it. Like, she will never initiate sex. It's never going to happen. And I'm okay with that. I can live with that. Or she will never initiate sex and I need that. It's part of being part of a intimate relationship with me. So I don't think I can have an intimate relationship with this person. Maybe I need to leave or, end this relationship. So there's a lot of hard conversations that have to be had, but in reality, living in the middle of the untruth is so damning and damaging that the pain you have to go through in either way, either to get to where you're a point and you're like, okay, I'm okay. This is what I'm going to have for the rest of my relationship with this person, or I'm not okay and I need to end the relationship. The pain that it goes through is much better than just sitting and doing nothing, because it's damaging to your soul.
Absolutely. From the lower desire standpoint, it's usually about being the disappointment or feeling like the disappointment. And in that case, it is really about stepping into your worth and value. And it is difficult because we like to measure a lot of things in life. We like to compare, we like to measure. And our worth and value isn't something that can be measured. It just inherently is. And so a lot of times it's about removing the measuring sticks and allowing yourself to own that you are inherently worthy and valuable, that you are enough. And the more that you own that value and your worth, then you can actually step into it and experience it and own it and be a part of it, like lean into it and allow it to be a part of your experience every day. I think it feels difficult to feel like you're a disappointment. And so for a lower desire, it is allowing that there will be spaces and places that you will disappoint your spouse, and nobody ever can fully fulfill another person. Esther Perel talks about this, how we put a lot of our worth and our emotional and physical and mental and spiritual expectations into one person. And that's really unfair. We need friends. We need groups to be a part of. We need hobbies or passions. We need lots of outlets, and one person can never be our all in everything. That isn't to say that they can be very meaningful and very influential and very much like the most important person in your life, but also we stack too many expectations on one person, and that is just inherently unfair. So for the lower desire, oftentimes it really is about stepping into your worth, owning your worth, stepping into your value, removing the measuring sticks. And as you remove those measuring sticks, it's interesting how much usually that leads to development and growth. When you're thinking you're not enough, you also act like you're not enough. And when you start believing in your enoughness or in your worth and your value, then you start stepping into it. You start allowing yourself to expand, to develop, to try things that maybe you were afraid of before. And so it's kind of this paradox, like owning your enoughness actually allows you to develop yourself. Whereas people tend to think if they are critical of themselves, that it will somehow help them to become more. And it's really not even about more or less. It's just really about owning your own experience.
Well, let's get to the whip and whip ourselves first before someone else does, right?
Right. Like, let's totally attack and berate and belittle and criticize. And that's somehow supposed to help you.
I think it
develop
dampens out the disappointment, right? If you're disappointed in yourself, then you can't be disappointed that someone else is disappointed in you, right? It's like, let's get to it right away and take ourselves down before someone else does. I think we sabotage ourselves like that all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The crazy thing about it is listening to you, you're saying the same thing that I was saying.
Yeah, we are. It's just
We're
it's
just coming from a different place, right?
Yes. Yes. It is literally back to the root of owning yourself, owning your worth, but also recognizing that your spouse isn't supposed to be everything for you.
It's funny because when you were talking about it, it reminded me when we were first married. Remember, I was like flabbergasted because you were depressed one time, and I was like,
yeah.
"Why are you depressed?" And she's like, "Because I don't have any friends." I'm like, "Well, what the am I?" Right? Like,
Well,
isn't all this good enough? Right? That's what I was saying.
You're definitely enough, babe.
Uh-huh.
But I had come from a situation, I always had at least 4 to 6 roommates. Every day we'd check in with each other. We'd gab and chat and talk. And there was so much interaction and engagement and storytelling and talking and sharing. And then we got married, and I would come home to you and say, "Tell me about your day." And you'd be like, "It was good."
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that you needed anything else. I think it was something that was kind of mirrored to me in my own childhood. My dad didn't want, didn't have, didn't need, didn't desire any other friends. Like he was like, there was nothing social about him. He would never go out and make friends. And so he really relied on my mom. And I think looking back on it at the time, my mom kind of caved into that a little bit. And so she went down that. So I grew up in a household where they were the only friends that they had were those two. I know there are stories of when they were married earlier on where they went out and had more friends and stuff, but I was too young when that happened. So in my influential years, or influential, I can't say it, yeah. In those years that were important to me and my growth, that's what I saw. And so I was kind of mimicking that. But I remember really truly being offended that you would say that you were depressed because you didn't have any friends. And I'm thinking, man, this is not going
You
well.
thought you weren't enough.
Yeah. Hey, I was on the other side.
Yeah.
Look at that.
And really, it was just a sign that I am my own person. I also will always need friendships. I absolutely cherish and appreciate our marriage and our relationship and our friendship. And I love my other friends, and they add so much color and depth and beauty into my life to have those friendships. And I think they also help me show up more between us. And so I think it's very, very, very healthy to have groups, people, places, churches, whatever your thing is, where you are able to form and develop your own relationships, and you bring hopefully those positive experiences and energies and fulfilling back to your marriage too.
Yeah.
Like you don't ever use them to take away, but to also to develop and expand.
I'm definitely okay with that now, for sure. It's not a problem for me. Go get friends.
Oh, yeah. And I'm also okay for you and your friends and the friends that you have.
Yep. Very much so.
And your interests
my hobbies and
your
joys.
hobbies.
I mean, I spent a lot of time with horses and people around horses. And now you've joined me in that, and that's been fun. But still, I've had my own hobbies for sure, and excitement. We talked about football in our last podcast.
Oh, yeah.
2 podcasts ago. I can't keep track of them all, but definitely something I enjoy. It's been nice to get my kids get a little older. I can have friends that are my son I watch football with. It's nice.
Super fun. But let's talk about some of the times when you want your spouse to join you in a hobby, a friendship, a passion, and it's just not their thing. And I'll give an example, because this is a great example. I also love walking.
Yes. Perfect.
I love to take walks. I love to be outside. I love to just feel the breeze, feel the sun, whatever, the wind, the trees, the flowers. Like I just love to be on walks. I love to talk. So I take walks by myself. I take walks with the friends. And I would love for you to join me on walks. And what do you think about walks, Greggy?
I hate them. That's like, if I always sit and I think, what would I want to do? That'd be like the last thing I do. I'll go ride a horse. I'll get out. I don't mind being outdoors, but going on walks just seems like a waste of time to me. But for a very long time in our marriage, I would begrudgingly go on walks. It started very early on. We went on a run early in our marriage.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I didn't want to go, and I begrudgingly went, and it started pouring rain. Yeah. And I was so mad that Amy wasn't wearing a white t-shirt, first of all, because that'd have been worth the run. I'd have been okay with that. But she wasn't. So I was completely mad. Like, here you drug me out to go on this run that I don't want to go on anyway. And now I'm soaking wet in the rain.
And I thought it was a great experience.
Well, next time I gave her a white t-shirt and said, let's go run in the rain.
No, until I came home and you were just so ticked. And I could not figure out why this was not a positive and uplifting and amazing experience for you.
That was even before we were married, I think, right?
I think we were engaged then. Anyways.
We were engaged or married for very long.
And so at some point, I don't exactly recall when, I think at some point I asked you to go on a walk with me and you said, I really just don't like going on walks.
Yep.
That's disappointing.
Yeah. It was, I couldn't say that before. So it was once we started this work on ourselves and being whole and being okay because on both sides, right? It sucks to be disappointed, but also when you love someone, you don't want to disappoint them, right?
Right.
And so you say things and do things that are untruthful to yourself because you're trying to avoid that. So
and while I had all of these visions of us having these lovely conversations, enjoying these beautiful walks, you would come and be begrudging and kind of like grumpy and moody on him. And then it wasn't the image. And so then I would just keep trying, like, well, maybe this walk will be the walk, right?
Yeah, this
so
is
it's
the
like
secret one.
Flipped.
So we learned to put ourselves on the back of four-legged friends, and we'll go on all kinds of walks then, huh?
They do the walking for us. That's what.
Oh, that makes me sound lazy now. Maybe I am.
Anyhow, so disappointing though, right? I appreciate your honesty in telling me because it is not really fun to have you where you really don't want to be. And so it takes honesty for you to say that and my willingness to accept it. You're probably feeling a little bit like a disappointment. I am feeling disappointed. And yet, how did we navigate that?
So, yeah, I mean, going back to how do we navigate it, I definitely felt pressure. And every time, the first time I said no, it wasn't like, woohoo, that felt so good. You know, you on your own. Every time you left, I thought about going with you and why didn't I do it? And I was lazy and I was a disappointment. So it did take time to work through all those things and realize that it just wasn't my thing. And I think in the end, on those rare occasions when I go on a walk with you, it means something, right? Because I'm doing it because I want to be there.
Because you actually legitimately want to be there.
It goes back to having choice, right? We talk about this a lot. If there's no choice given, there's no place to step into, then that person's not allowed to make a choice. It's the hell yes and the hell no, right? I wasn't allowed to say no because it meant something so bad to you and you just kept trying to get me to go that I couldn't say no. And we'd gotten over that part and I was able to say no, but it still was hard because I could tell I was disappointing you.
Yeah. And I did feel disappointed because I did have to let go of some visions and dreams and hopes about experiences we would have and how it would feel to be on a walk with you and so forth and so on. But also I appreciated the honesty and it helped me to manage those expectations. And what I appreciate more than you being on a walk with me is our ability to be honest with each other and to be able to connect in ways that work for both of us.
So you went on the walk this morning. Did you keep thinking, I wish Greg was here?
No, I didn't.
And now I don't know if I like that or not.
No, I appreciate that time. I feel invigorated when I go out first thing and it's, sunrise and what have you. And I love that. And I can enjoy that and appreciate that and not expect you to love it too. And bring that energy back to our relationship. Right. And I remember when I got back, I had a text message from you that was like, love you, you're the best. And so we stayed connected throughout the separation. And
yeah. Because I can ask you about that, right? And I'm okay to hear I can now, because I'm not so worried about being poisoned, I can say, how was your walk? Was the horses happy to see you? Was the sunrise
Pepper was
beautiful?
happy to see me.
He's always happy to see you. We won't tell everyone on how he shows you that he's happy to see you. But.
Dr. Pepper is the horse that I ride, and he is always so happy to see me. I'll sometimes walk out, and we live just by where our horse and Dr. Pepper is stabled, and so Dr. Pepper's in a pasture, and he comes running out to see me.
Talk about
Wonderful.
ego boost.
No.
Next time when you come home, I'm going to run out of my pasture.
Anyhow, back to the disappointment. It was disappointing, and it did take me time to process and accept the reality that I love this man and he doesn't love walks. And I can be okay with both of those.
Yep. Very much so.
And surrender that idea that if you loved me, you would go on a walk with me.
It really goes back to the way that we deal with these things and the differentiation of being different. I mean, that's the key word of differentiation, that we are different. Our desires are different.
Or like the differential in a car of tires that turns independently so that you can actually move.
Right. Oh, that's deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because cars can't turn as tight or maneuver as well if there wasn't the differential in the wheels that allows both of them to turn independently.
Yes, at different rates.
At different rates. Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
There you go. There's your deep thought for the day.
My head turned off. But it's what it's meant to be. It's just like we talk about our sexual desires aren't bad. It's how we represent them and how we share them. And the difference between them isn't bad. It's the way that we deal with that. And so,
just like my desire for a walk is not bad, my desire to want to share that with you is not bad. And yet it's not something you enjoy.
And it's not bad for me not to enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm lazy. It doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. It means that's something I don't enjoy.
And there are other ways and spaces and places that we do connect very well that are replenishing to both of us, but it's definitely not going on walks.
Yep. All right. So let's recap here.
Let's do it.
You're going to be disappointed.
Yes.
Just accept that right now. That's part of marriage. There's no way to get around it. In fact, as we said before,
it's actually a healthy, necessary part of marriage.
And if it's not happening, then one of you is not showing up, just like we said before.
You're probably choosing to be peaceful and try to keep the peace instead of being honest. And that means you will have a peaceful relationship, but you won't have an intimate one.
Nope. And it sucks.
Yes. Nobody really wants to be disappointed.
Being disappointed is not a thing that we go joyfully into.
Nope.
But the key point about it is how we deal with it.
Often disappointment is a cue to help you manage your expectations. And desires and expectations are different. Expectations is this person should do this for me, and desires are I would enjoy this.
Yeah, man, we hadn't even got into that part. I haven't even thought about that. That's so true. I talked about later on an earlier podcast, not later podcast, an earlier one, about just getting out of the way when it came to initiating sexual interactions with Amy. And that when I didn't set those expectations that this was how it was going to happen, that it looked just like this, about the 500 ways I thought about that day, about how she was going to initiate sex and that how good it was going to be. When I stopped doing that, and it wasn't what I did before where it was toxic and dependent, where I didn't desire. I still desired her to do all those things, but I stopped setting expectations on her. The way that she showed up was mind-blowing. It was way better than I had ever imagined or believed to be, because I had set an expectation that was unrealistic at first. And when I got rid of that expectation, it was very helpful. So something we hadn't talked about that I think is really important is the expectations we set on each other. And if sometimes we can just not get rid of that desire, but just stop putting that expectation, it gives room for our spouse to actually step up in their way and do the things that they would do. And those are often way better than the things that I thought of. I know. We recorded that. I said I was wrong.
Did everyone hear that?
She's like, it's recorded forever now.
Just teasing. No, we openly admit that quite often.
Yeah, so.
Both of us, not just him. I mean, I'm also wrong.
Yep. So we've had our share of disappointments.
Yes. Life will be disappointing. Jobs will be disappointing. Children will disappoint you. Your spouse won't be everything you want them to be. They won't want to go on walks with you. And you can still create really intimate, connected relationships, whether it's with your families or your children or your spouse, what have you.
Yeah, we see this all the time on our clients. It comes up everywhere. If you're going to have an intimate relationship, that you're going to have to deal with disappointment and understand what it is. And we would love to chat with you about it. If you're struggling in this area and you feel like you're worried to disappoint your spouse or
your family,
you're failing at being disappointed and it's causing you to be depressed and not be able to deal with things, man, come visit us.
Yeah.
Langfordlifecoaching.com.
We can help walk you through how to actually process and metabolize that disappointment and help you see what it is you might be expecting or needing, or stories or narratives that you may need to rewrite or update or revise. There's always lots of possibility and potential there.
Yep. Go like and subscribe to this podcast. It helps us in doing it. Send your comments back to us. We'd love to hear what you think about it. And again, go visit us. There's a little button that says
click here for a free consult.
That's right. Click that one. I think we had to say consult. We had consultation and it bent,
we didn't fit on the button.
Yeah, so we had to make consult. So we shortened it consult. Go for a free consult. Sign up. You can chat with either myself or Amy. If you really beg, maybe you can both of us. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
We've done it once or twice before.
Yeah.
And we would love to talk to you and help you out. So have a great week. Until next time.
Keep undressing your intimacy.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.